What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, we're going to be talking about something that came up during a recent live stream that I thought was pretty interesting. This was the pricing for the Ultimate Fallout 4 Drzevic variant, and basically why I am concerned about the prices that it's selling for right now, where I think it's going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the clip from that live stream, then we're going to cut back here, and I'm going to talk about how I came to those conclusions, that kind of thing, where I think it's going to go, all of that. So stay tuned and let's talk about this book. Yes, I am definitely watching this one. Let's see. I don't remember where that. Let's just look it up because I don't want to. I feel like I'm gonna be. I don't want to make you guys have to watch me scroll through stuff. So we'll go here. I'll go to Ultimate Fallout because this one, I've been talking about this one for a while. That it felt like this one was just getting ready to take a drop, and it's sitting at 16.2 right now. We'll see, because there's a few ways, there's always the conspiracy theory side, where somebody that owns it is going to, want to bid it up to try to, retain the value on their book. But this one has had a couple, one lower sale recently. It had or I guess I'll say two. It had the signature sale. There was a signed copy that went for like 33,000 or something. And then there was a blue label that I think sold in the last Comic Link for around 33. I posted about it on my Instagram. There was some, if you want to check out my Instagram, go follow me there. I posted about that one there. And now this one, I was thinking this book, when it ultimately bottoms out, I could see this one going into the mid-teens. I wouldn't be shocked. And the reality is, though, that is still a huge jump. I would even be a little afraid there. With this one, and I like Miles Morales. I like the Ultimate Fallout book. I just think that this one got way too hot. And I'll show you what I mean. So you've got the variant. Oh yeah. So I guess GPA, it's lucky that last sale was Comic Link, because it didn't show up on here. But you had the variant that, just go back to 2019, 2018. This was a $2,000 book. Low sale in 2018, $1,200, 43,000. That's 20x for that book. That is, the Silver Age stuff that went crazy. Like one of the worst ones was probably X-Men 4 was one of the worst ones. And then for Bronze Age, X-Men 94 was one of the worst ones. And those went up I believe 5x, 4x to 5x. This went up 20 times. That should scare you, if you're somebody who bought here. It's just, it would make me nervous. And because when you look at how many copies are out there, let's see. Ultimate Fallout number 4. So let's see. Let's look at how many copies are graded out there. There are 174 9.8s. And I would not be surprised if there's more raws and everything that are still sitting out there. And, when we look at the sales history, now there are definitely private sales, all that kind of thing. And there's the Comic Link sales that don't show up on here. But since 2021, there were 8 that sold in 2021, 3 that sold in 2022, 1 in the last 90 days. This is not a lot of copies that at least publicly have sold. Less than 10% of those copies, which means a lot of people probably bought. So let's look at this. So we had 1, then 4, 12, plus 13, and even this, let's see, when did it hit? These were all at 9,000. So this is low. So we'll say publicly 12 copies sold for these kind of high elevated numbers. That means that a lot of copies that are out there, people probably got for pretty cheap. $1,000, $2,000, even $10,000. And it's the same thing that I think probably happened with Amazing Fantasy 15. Prices double or triple when people had a very low buy-in. They're like, hey man, this is $100,000 book now, and I paid 20. I'll sell this. And so I feel like that is the type of thing I would be looking out for, is that you have a lot of people that maybe are only into it cover price, maybe, or what would it be called? ratio price. And, or they paid a couple thousand or a couple hundred, and now it's a $40,000 book. I'd be tempted to sell it too. And so that's the type of thing that I get really worried about. You've got, I've shown this one before in one of my prior videos on a book that I said looked like is probably pretty reasonable to start looking for right now. And that's Hulk 180. Hulk 180 has corrected almost back to, if not all the way back to, its pre-boom prices. And so if we look at like a 9.2, if you look at that trend that Hulk 180 is following, it's right there. I mean, this book, I would be very comfortable buying a Hulk 180 right now. Yeah, who knows? Maybe it drops a little further, that kind of thing. But I'm not real nervous about, the downside, the couple $100 down it might have. But that other book, it's still up 20x, 15x, from that. That would have been like if this one went from 1,600 to, would that be like, so 20x, like 32,000. If this turned into a $32,000 book, I mean, it's like, it's off the page. That's what that Ultimate Fallout 4 Drajevic variant did. It went here, like off the page is what that book did. And it's still up there. And so that's why, when you're looking at a chart that it looks like, oh, it looks the same, you're not really looking at the percentages here. You're just looking at dollar values. It's like, oh, it went up a lot and it's trending down. It's like, no, it went up way more than that. If you charted these percentage wise against each other, this would barely be a blip on that chart compared to that Ultimate Fallout 4. That's what would make me really nervous there.
All right, so welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that live stream. If you didn't catch it live, you can always go check that one out as well. It was a couple weeks ago that I did that live stream. So that book has now officially sold. That book ended up selling for $33,600. So I'm going to talk about why that's important and kind of where I think this book is going to go. Now, remember, there's nothing definitive about what I'm talking about here. These are just my best guesses. This is me presenting my case about why I would be nervous about owning this book right now at its current pricing. All right, now before I get into this, I just want to touch on something. I have had some people get a little upset sometimes when I talk about this book. For example, how there have been private sales that have been at lower numbers than this or around this sale price. But I always want to talk about that with the private sales, because with private sales, the only people that really know about that sale are the person who sold the book and the person who bought the book. Maybe a couple of those people told people about what they sold or bought the book for, but in general, that is not widely available knowledge. If it's sold, whether it's on Instagram or it's sold at a con or that kind of thing, it's like those types of sales are not public knowledge. They aren't something that gets pulled into GPA or Cover Price or Go Collect or Fanalytics in the future, any of that kind of stuff. And so the issue is that when you don't have that knowledge available to everyone, you can't really use that as a determining factor for the price of the book. I mean, you can know about it, but the other people that are bidding, what they know is they know about the prices that they see. So just something to always keep in mind is that the public sales, in my opinion, are much more important in driving the ultimate value of that book. Those private sales, yeah, they happen, but very few people know about them other than the people directly related to it. So let's move on to how I've come to my conclusions about this book. And I'm going to start with the data from 2018. So cover A, the standard cover for Ultimate Fallout 4, started in 2018 selling for around $175. Finished the year around $375. So I'm just going to say in 2018, cover A was selling for about $300. Now the variant, which I believe is a 1 in 25, the Drajevic variant, that started off the year selling for around $1,300, finished around $1,900. So I'm just going to say that one was going for around $1,800 that year. I'm just picking these numbers because $300 and $1,800 fit into each other, multiply into each other. So I get that the variant was selling for about 6 times what cover A was selling for that year. Now let's look at the peak, where both of these books peaked. So cover A peaked at $4,499. That was the high sale according to GPA for that book. And that was definitely, a little bit of an outlier, but still, it's the high sale for that book. The variant peaked at $43,200. That was the high sale for that one. So at that point, variant was selling for about 9.5 times what cover A was selling for. So let's just say that it was selling for about 10 times what cover A was. So for me, I have a value range of cover A to the variant of about 6 to 10x. So the variant selling for about 6 to 10 times what cover A is selling for. Now let's look at what cover A has done. So this is what's important to me because cover A sells all the time. Even publicly on GPA, you have hundreds of sales every year of that book. So in 2022, for example, there were 260 sales that were pulled into GPA. In 2023, there have already been 78 sales. So to me, why that's important is that cover A is going to react much more quickly than the variant because there's so many more of them. They will adjust their price more quickly. And so that's why I'm viewing cover A as kind of telling me the future of what the variant is going to do because it sells so much more often. Now the variant, it used to even sell quite a bit more than it has recently. It's like when it spiked, people stopped selling it. They kind of held it back a little bit more because it was selling 20 times a year. Now it's only selling a few. So that's another big concern, is that you could end up getting that book just dumping out on the market because it did used to sell for 20 or more times per year. And the fact that it isn't right now means that there are possibly a lot of copies out there that could just get dumped when people decide, oh, this thing's starting to come down. Maybe I should sell my book because I paid $2,000 for it and now it's worth 30 and I want to get as much out of it as I can. So if we're looking at what cover A has done, cover A is now selling for around $1,800. And that seems like it's been pretty stable there. There are quite a few sales. It fluctuates like anything, but it's going around $1,800. It has pulled back 60% from its peak, and it's currently selling for about 6 times what it did in 2018, which still is a very strong performing book. I mean, going up 6 times in 5 years, 6x in 5 years, that's pretty incredible. So it still is a very strong performing book. Now let's look at the variant. The variant had its last sale, this one that just sold on Heritage, for $33,600. That is still 18.5 times its price from 2018. So if we're looking at the 6 to 10 range, the 6 to 10 times range that I talked about earlier, that it seems like the variant is typically selling for compared to cover A, that means you would expect a value of the variant of between $10,800 and $18,000. Also, if we look at the drop of 60% that cover A took, that would put the variant at $17,280. That's why in the live stream, I was saying that I could see this book going down into the teens. That's where I think this book is likely going to end up. It will likely end up in the teens. I can't say for sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe it spikes. Maybe the people that have said it's going to become a $100,000 book when there's a live action Miles Morales movie, maybe that's going to happen. But to me, I think that this book is currently massively overinflated beyond what the cover A is, and I would be concerned about it if I owned it. So that's my take on it and why I think the price will likely correct down into the teens, somewhere in the $15,000 range, give or take, whatever it might be, just because of where cover A has gone and kind of the future that it's showing us. Now, the other thing is that I realize that, you come out with a Miles Morales like live action show, it's like that could have some type of impact. But what I've seen with other spec books, with what's happened over the comic boom, is that the movies and shows and that kind of stuff, they don't really seem to have much of an impact on the value of books that are still elevated in price. If you have a book that went up huge in the comic boom and then you get some announcement about a show or a movie or whatever, it doesn't really move. You might sell a few more copies, but it's still kind of staying flat because it's already so elevated. And so I personally, at least, wouldn't be counting on Ultimate Fallout 4, especially the Djurjevic variant, the one that's still very elevated in price, making some big jump if there's a live action Miles Morales movie. I mean, hey, if it does, it doesn't hurt me in any way. Like, I don't mind. I'm just putting this out there as this is my view on where the prices are for that book right now and where I think they're going to be. So if you're an owner of the book, you might want to consider selling it. If you're looking at buying it, you might want to have some patience and see where that book goes because, hey, who wants to throw away, $10,000 or $20,000? So hopefully you enjoyed this video, got some useful information about, Ultimate Fallout 4 and Cover A and the Drzevic variant. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.